What if one day, a young girl simply vanished from her bus stop, never to be seen again for the next 18 years? This isn't the beginning of a chilling thriller novel. It's the all-too-real story of Jaycee Lee Dugard, whose life was irrevocably altered on a fateful summer day. Jaycee Lee Dugard was an ordinary 11-year-old girl living in South Lake Tahoe, California. She loved animals, was a fan of the color pink, and like most kids her age, she was looking forward to her summer break. Her life was as typical as any young girl's could be, filled with schoolwork, playdates, and family time. But all that would change in an instant. The date was June 10th, 1991. The sun had barely risen and the air was still crisp with the remnants of the night. Jaycee, like many other schoolchildren, was due to catch the school bus to her elementary school. She walked the short distance from her home to the bus stop, just as she had done countless times before. But on this particular morning, Jaycee wouldn't make it to school. In fact, she wouldn't make it to the school bus at all. She was there, and then she wasn't. As quickly as a gust of wind sweeps through a quiet street, Jaycee Lee Dugard was gone. The bus stop, once a symbol of routine and normality, was now a haunting reminder of a mystery that would baffle investigators for years. The news of her disappearance spread like wildfire, sending ripples of shock and fear through the small, tight-knit community of South Lake Tahoe. Friends, family, neighbors, even strangers were left reeling, grappling to understand how such a thing could happen in their quiet town. Just like that, Jaycee Lee Dugard was gone, and a small community was left in shock and fear. The journey to uncover what happened to Jaycee was just about to begin, a journey that would reveal a story more harrowing and unimaginable than anyone could have ever foreseen. As the news spread, an immediate manhunt began. Every nook and cranny was searched, yet Jaycee was nowhere to be found. The disappearance of Jaycee Lee Dugard had sent shockwaves through the community. The police, the family, and the community at large were thrust into a desperate search for the missing 11-year-old. The local law enforcement swung into action, setting up roadblocks, conducting house-to-house searches, and combing through the surrounding forests. The local community, too, joined in the efforts. Strangers and neighbors alike rallied, plastering the town with Jaycee's picture and the heartbreaking details of her abduction. The media spotlight was intense, with news outlets from across the nation descending on the small town, amplifying the desperate plea for Jaycee's safe return. The initial weeks of the investigation were a whirlwind of activity. Leads poured in from all corners, each one a glimmer of hope in the growing darkness. But as the police followed each lead, they were met with dead ends. The trail was cold, and the lack of concrete evidence was disheartening. There were no witnesses to the abduction, no physical evidence left behind, nothing but the haunting echo of a bicycle bell ringing out in a quiet street. As the days turned into weeks and then months, the sense of urgency began to fade. The media circus moved on to the next big story, leaving behind a grieving family and a weary community. The leads dried up and the investigation was at a standstill. The police were left with a case file full of unanswered questions and a growing sense of despair. Despite their tireless efforts, they were no closer to finding Jaycee than they were on the day of her disappearance. And so, as the seasons changed, so did the nature of the investigation. The immediate manhunt gradually turned into a long-term missing person case. The police continued their work, but the community's hope began to waver. Despite their best efforts, no trace of Jaycee was found, and the case went cold. Years passed and hope began to fade. Yet, a sudden lead breathed new life into the case. As the calendar pages turned, the investigation into Jaycee Lee Dugard's disappearance seemed to be stuck in a grueling cycle of false leads and dead ends. Then, out of the blue, a ray of hope pierced the gloom. A voice, hauntingly familiar yet distant, echoed from a home answering machine. A voice that bore a striking resemblance to Jaycee's. Could it be her? Could this be the breakthrough everyone was yearning for? Investigators pounced on this new lead with renewed vigor. The voice, a flicker of life in a case growing cold, seemed to promise a path leading to Jaycee. This was no ordinary lead. It was the first tangible trace of Jaycee since her abrupt disappearance. The pursuit of this lead was a race against time, a race that could mean the difference between life and death. The answering machine tape was scrutinized, analyzed, and cross-referenced with recordings of Jaycee's voice. The similarities were uncanny. It seemed as though Jaycee herself had reached out from wherever she was held captive, giving investigators a clue, a lifeline to trace back to her. The efforts to trace the call commenced with unwavering determination, a task that was technical, grueling, and fraught with challenges. Each passing moment brought a mix of anticipation and anxiety. Would this be the key to unlocking the mystery of Jaycee's whereabouts? However, as the investigation unfolded, the initial surge of hope began to ebb. Tracing the call proved to be a Herculean task. The voice, once a beacon of promise, began to fade into the background noise of countless other leads that led nowhere. As the dust settled, the harsh reality dawned. The lead, once a beacon of hope, morphed into yet another frustrating dead end. The voice on the answering machine, despite its uncanny likeness to Jaycee's, could not be definitively linked to her. The breakthrough everyone had hoped for turned out to be another heart-wrenching disappointment. However, the lead proved to be another dead end, and Jaycee remained missing. 18 long years later, the unthinkable happened. The world would finally know what happened to Jaycee Lee Dugard. For nearly 2 decades, Jaycee's disappearance remained a mystery. A family left in pain, a community in shock, and investigators left with more questions than answers. But what seemed like an unsolvable puzzle began to unravel in the summer of 2009. Enter Philip and Nancy Garrido, a couple living in Antioch, California, over 170 miles away from where Jaycee was last seen. Philip, a convicted sex offender, was under the watchful eye of the authorities. A routine parole visit by his parole officer would set the wheels of justice in motion. During this visit, the parole officer noticed something unsettling: the presence of 2 young girls whose existence had never been reported. This raised red flags, and a deeper investigation was launched. Philip and Nancy Garrido were brought in for questioning, and it was here that the unimaginable truth began to surface. The Garridos confessed to the unthinkable crime. They had kidnapped Jaycee, a mere 11-year-old at the time, and held her captive in their backyard for 18 harrowing years. The world watched in horror as the details unfolded. Jaycee had been subjected to unimaginable circumstances, living in makeshift tents and sheds in the Garridos' backyard. Hidden from the world, she was forced to endure the unspeakable. In a chilling revelation, it was discovered that Jaycee had given birth to 2 daughters during her captivity, the very girls the parole officer had noticed. The children were fathered by Philip Garrido, adding another layer of horror to this already terrifying tale. Throughout her ordeal, Jaycee's spirit remained unbroken. She cared for her daughters, providing them with as much love and normalcy as she could muster in such dire circumstances. In an unbelievable twist, Jaycee was found alive, but the circumstances of her captivity were beyond anyone's worst nightmares. Jaycee's story of survival is one of unimaginable strength and resilience. This is where the narrative twists into a tale of endurance in the most horrific circumstances. For 18 long years, Jaycee Lee Dugard was held captive in a makeshift compound, concealed behind the Garrido residence. The prison was a series of tents and sheds, devoid of the most basic amenities. It was a place shrouded in darkness, both literally and metaphorically, with no connection to the outside world. No sunlight, no fresh air, no freedom. Yet it was in this grim reality that Jaycee was forced to create a semblance of normalcy, a task that would test her courage and tenacity beyond limits. The first few years of Jaycee's captivity were marked by isolation and fear. But as time wore on, she was confronted with a new challenge, one that would add another layer to her complex ordeal: motherhood. At the age of 14, Jaycee gave birth to her first daughter, fathered by her captor, Philip Garrido. 3 years later, a second daughter was born. In the face of such adversity, one might wonder, how does a child, herself robbed of a normal childhood, raise 2 daughters? How does she instill in them values, love, and hope, when all around is despair and darkness? The answer lies in Jaycee's indomitable spirit. Jaycee became the beacon of light in her daughters' lives. She educated them as best as she could, teaching them to read and write. She celebrated their birthdays, made holidays special, and filled their lives with as much joy as she could muster in that grim setting. In her daughters, she found a renewed purpose to endure, to survive. They became her world, her reason to hope for a better future. Jaycee's determination to protect her daughters from the harsh reality of their existence was nothing short of heroic. She shielded them from the truth of their father's monstrous deeds, telling them that their confinement was due to a strange and unique family situation. She bore the brunt of Garrido's erratic behavior, ensuring her children's lives were as untouched by his instability as possible. Throughout her ordeal, Jaycee never lost her humanity. She held on to her inner strength, her compassion, and her ability to love. She nurtured her daughters, providing them with the emotional support they needed to survive their peculiar situation. She transformed her prison into a home, a safe haven for her children amidst the chaos. Jaycee's story is not just about survival. It's about resilience. It's about finding hope in the darkest corners, about nurturing love in the face of hate, about protecting innocence amidst evil. It's about the power of the human spirit to withstand the unthinkable and still emerge with its essence intact. Despite the horrific circumstances, Jaycee held on to hope, a decision that ultimately saved her and her daughter's lives. This is a testament to her courage, her strength, and her unyielding determination to survive, to protect, and to love. Justice, often elusive, finally came for Jaycee and her captors. The Garridos, Philip and Nancy, were put on trial for their heinous crimes. The trial was a media circus, with the public's outrage palpable. Philip Garrido was given a sentence of 431 years to life in prison, a reflection of the severity of his crimes. His wife, Nancy, was not spared either, receiving a sentence of 36 years to life. The sentencing sent a clear message to society. Such monstrous acts would not go unpunished. The public reaction was a mix of relief and horror. Relief that justice had been served, and horror at the extent of Jaycee's ordeal. The case sparked a nationwide conversation about the effectiveness of parole systems and the need for better supervision of sex offenders. But our story does not end with the Garrido sentencing. After 18 long years, Jaycee was finally reunited with her family. It was a bittersweet reunion, filled with tears of joy and sorrow. Jaycee had missed out on so much: birthdays, Christmases, school graduations, but she was determined to reclaim her life. In the years following her ordeal, Jaycee has shown incredible resilience. She has written a memoir detailing her experiences and her journey towards healing. She has also established the Jaycee Foundation, a non-profit organization that provides support for families dealing with trauma. Her story is a testament to the strength of the human spirit, and a reminder that hope can endure even in the darkest of times. Jaycee's story also serves as a stark reminder of the evil that exists in our world. But it also reminds us of the power of resilience, of the strength that can emerge from adversity, and the hope that can bloom even in the darkest of nights. In the face of unimaginable adversity, Jaycee Lee Dugard emerged not as a victim but as a survivor. Jaycee's story, while tragic, serves as a stark reminder and a call for vigilance. This tale of survival and resilience imparts lessons that are far-reaching, leaving a profound impact on society. First, let's address the elephant in the room: community vigilance. Jaycee's case underscores the significance of being alert to our surroundings, of keeping an eye out for the unusual, the out of place. We are reminded that it's not just the responsibility of law enforcement to ensure safety, but it's also a collective duty we all share. It's about looking out for one another, about creating an environment where a silent cry for help doesn't go unnoticed. Moreover, Jaycee's ordeal has driven home the importance of child safety education. It has prompted a shift in our approach, moving from merely warning children about stranger danger to equipping them with the knowledge and skills to recognize and respond to unsafe situations. It's about fostering a culture of open dialogue, where children feel comfortable discussing their fears and concerns. But perhaps the most significant impact of Jaycee's case lies in the changes it has spurred in child safety laws and protocols. Following her ordeal, we've seen a wave of legislative actions aimed at strengthening the systems in place to protect our children. These range from enhanced background checks for parolees to reforms in the way missing child cases are handled, pushing for more proactive and coordinated efforts. Yet, amidst these lessons, it's essential to remember that Jaycee's story is not just about the system's failures or societal shortcomings. It's about her. It's about a girl who, against all odds, survived an unimaginable ordeal. It's about resilience, about the strength of the human spirit when faced with the unthinkable. In the end, Jaycee's story is a testament to the human spirit's resilience, a beacon of hope in the darkest of times. It's a reminder that even in the face of adversity, we can find the strength to endure, to heal, and ultimately, to triumph.